Welcome to People in Profit, where we look at how business shapes our world. I'm Kate Moody. Coming up, as France's presidential election approaches, how exposed are the candidates to the threat of hacking? We'll talk to a cybersecurity firm about how politicians and businesses can protect themselves. The Trump slump, America's tourist industry, worries that the president's travel ban will discourage visitors. Meanwhile, the global cruise industry is expecting record growth over the next decade, and French cities are cashing in. Since America's presidential election in November, cyber attacks have become part of the political conversation around the globe. The French government says the number of attempted hacks on its servers doubled last year to 24,000. There are warnings that the upcoming French presidential vote could be targeted. Candidate Emmanuel Macron has accused the Russian government of attempting to hack his campaign servers. The EU also says that it's battling a growing number of aggressive attempts to compromise its computer systems. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that increasing defenses against such threats is a top priority.
Today, there are so many ways to paralyze infrastructures from cyber attacks. And this is very difficult in the guarantee of public services. Therefore, cybersecurity is of great importance.
Now, to give us some insight into the murky world of cyber attacks, I'm joined by David Groux, Director for Southern Europe at the cybersecurity firm FireEye. Thanks for joining us today. Why are we seeing such an increase in cyber attacks, or at least attempted cyber attacks, here in Europe?
I think we can think about a lot of different vehicles who are pushing this kind of change or movement. The first one is the geopolitical statement in Europe. Globally, if you are looking about the election and also some pressure between the countries, is one of the vehicles where the cyber is trying to take a place, and this is one of the stuff. And the other part of the equation is also all the new regulation where the people are really focusing on the cyber world.
Is there a difference between the attacks that we're seeing targeting political groups and corporations, industries themselves?
Yeah, we are seeing some differences between the both, but the main difference is the motivation behind and what they are looking for, the intent. And globally, on the technical side, we are talking about techniques, tools, and procedures for those kind of people. They are using the same approach, but they are not looking for the same things. In one way, they are looking for cyber espionage. In the other way, they are working more on or influencing people and mindset.
So is there a shift in the kind of attacks that you're seeing?
It's a shift of the kind of attack for some groups. In fact, we saw some groups, and one in particular at FireEye that we are following up since a decade right now, since 2007. We saw this group, this specific group is named APT28. This group has been really focused on enterprise and industry from 2007 to 2014, where they looked only for cyber espionage, patents, and wins over the money. And from 2014, they decided to switch their focus to geopolitical influences and trying to find information, make some breaches, exfiltrate the data, and publish the data over internet.
Why has there been that shift in goal for these groups?
I would say why is also always difficult to answer, because it's a lot of time, I would say, a little bit strange when they decided to change. One of the main motivation is right now the geopolitical situation needs to exist on the cyberspace. I would say until maybe a few years ago, all the countries were working on the military space. If I'm talking about military for a few seconds, they worked on space, air, sea, and in the field. And right now, the cyber is one position where they need to be. And one of the ways to try to show that you are, I would say, you have enough muscles, if I can use this kind of terms, is really to try to influence something or exfiltrate information and show that you're able to do it.
What do you make of the claims by Emmanuel Macron and his campaign that the French presidential candidate himself has been the target of hacking? Do you think that's a realistic claim?
I would say yes. It's a realistic claim in the way that we already saw this kind of behavior in the past with the US election. We also observe some big changes and waves in the social media network regarding the people we are following up on this kind of attacks. Nevertheless, we haven't any real proof because we were not involved on the investigation. But the claims and the behavior is clearly linked and, I would say, aligned with what those groups are able to do.
What is in the pipeline in terms of regulations and cracking down on cyber attacks or cyber threats?
I would say two main regulations has been voted by the European Commission, and they will be applied by May 2018. The first one is the GDPR, the General Data Privacy Regulation, really focus on the way and how you need to tackle an incident when you are breached and the people are able to exfiltrate information regarding your customers and the people personally. And this is one of the regulations with really close to be applied because May 2018 is like tomorrow. And the second one is the NIST, the Network Information System, who is more dedicated to technical, I will say, equipment you need to put in place and the way you need to react and communicate. And also, this one will be applied in Europe mid next year.
What do you think is the biggest cyber threat facing Europe at the moment?
I would say the biggest cyber threat is not really a cyber threat. The biggest cyber threat is that Europe is a little bit, I would say, reluctant to open the eyes and to be honest or enough honest to say it happens already and we need to take this carefully and move forward. If we compare, for example, we just published a report with named the M-Trend, is like all the statistics regarding all the incident response we made last year. And what we can see is that in Europe, for example, a company in general needs roughly 109 days before understanding that someone is entering in the network. 109 days, you need to put this in confrontation with the fact that when we are making an exercise, we are able to take all the power on the IT within 3 days. And right now, we need just to wake up and say, guys, no, we don't need to wait.
Thank you so much for joining us here on People and Profit.
Thank you.
Next up, he's vowed to put America first, but the U.S. tourist industry worries that Donald Trump will do just the reverse for it. The U.S. welcomed 77 million international visitors in 2016, bringing in nearly $1.5 trillion. Just 2 months into the Trump administration, though, industry analysts say tough immigration talk and travel restrictions targeting Muslim-majority countries are already weighing on new arrivals.
In 1 week after the executive order was issued for the travel ban, there was $185 million worth of lost travel bookings in the business travel market.
So just how much might America's tourist industry really be impacted by President Trump? Delana D'Souza has been finding out. Delana?
Thanks, Kate. Well, the travel ban now encompasses 6 Muslim-majority countries. They include Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria and Yemen. Iraq has been left off the revised executive order. Initial forecasts for 2017 show the restrictions would translate to 4.3 million fewer visitors to the United States. This decline would impact over 62,000 jobs and lead to an economic hit of $7.4 billion. Not surprisingly, the biggest tourist destination in the country would feel the heat from Donald Trump's travel ban. Industry experts in the Big Apple say they expect to witness a 2% drop in international visitors in 2017. It would be the first decline in New York in 8 years. As a result, the city is also expected to see its revenues fall $900 million this year. Across the country is the second most visited city, and Los Angeles, too, is expected to see its numbers fall. Over 3 years, it's poised to witness a decline of 800,000 visitors. This would generate a loss in revenue of $736 million. The decline in LA, however, concerns Donald Trump's rhetoric about Mexico, with fewer travelers from the country set to visit the United States. But have there been any immediate consequences to Donald Trump's travel ban? Well, already under his presidency, the U.S. has slipped 3 spots in a survey of how nations are perceived from a global perspective. The United States dropping to 7th place in 2017. According to Tourism Economics, bookings from Western Europe to the United States plunged 14%. This compared with the same period last year from the 28th of January to the 4th of February. There is one bright spot, however. Flight searches from Russia to the United States have surged by 66%. This from a country where coverage of Donald Trump as president has, for the most part, been favorable. Kate, back to you.
Delana, thank you so much for that insight. Now, if they don't want to head to the U.S., international tourists may be increasingly taking to the seas. Cruise lines say they're expecting over 25 million passengers this year. France has become a top destination, and the economic benefits translate to ports of call as well. Catherine Viette and Alexander Hurst have more.
With 84 ports of call and 5 million passengers visiting its shores last year, France is a prized destination for cruise ships. Cruise lines carefully choose land-based excursions for their passengers, like the vineyards not far from Toulon.
Take time and enjoy each moment, all right?
Normally in California, the wine tasting is in a big room and there's no personalized tasting like this, so it was very nice.
The nearly 200,000 people that disembark every year inject some 20 million euros to the local economy. In Le Havre, these German tourists are greeted in their own language. Before exploring the town or being taken on a trip to Paris.
There are direct economic benefits because the buses that take them on trips are local buses. The guides are local people, so even when people go to Paris, this region still benefits.
But to attract the really big numbers, you have to invest big, which is the strategy that Marseille has pursued. The southern French city has invested in infrastructure not just for tourists, but for the giant ships as well, namely the ability for them to dock for repairs.
It reassures cruise lines that have ships in the Mediterranean that if something goes wrong, a ship can get repairs done in 24 to 48 hours.
The energy-intensive ships have been criticized for their effect on the environment, from carbon emissions to dumping untreated sewage to harming coral reefs. But according to industry research, cruise ships support over 16,000 jobs in France, worth overall around 2 billion euros to the economy.
That's it for this week's show. If you have any questions or comments about the stories we've been covering, you can get in touch on Facebook at France 24 Business, or you can tweet me at Kate A. Moody. Until next time, thanks for watching.